6 a.m. My father's funeral was in 4 hours. That's when they came with sledgehammers. Crack, crack, crack. 12 minutes and 3 months of grief therapy obliterated in a pile of cedar and feathers. My handmade chicken coop. Gone, along with the only thing that had given me any kind of peace since Sarah passed. The smell of crushed marigolds and sawdust from my wife's memorial garden hung in the dew as my terrified hens scattered across the yard. And standing there, phone out, was Delilah, HOA president, smiling for Facebook and posting laughing emojis. Called it a lesson for people who don't belong. But she didn't know the secret 6 feet under my boots, a 60-year-old drainage valve, one rusty handle, holding back the flow to their $5 million lake. The very thing that kept 347 property values floating sky-high. One twist. 48 hours. Nothing but mudflats. You ever wonder what you'd do if your HOA pulled this during your father's funeral? Drop in the comments where you're watching from. Bet your HOA's got skeletons too. Name's Jasper Crawford. Jazz to the folks that matter. 6 months ago, I thought I knew how deep the hole was. Third-gen electrician, recently widowed, sole caretaker for a dad, who called me Tommy half the time because dementia doesn't pull its punches. I'd inherited 2 acres in Willowbrook Estates from my grandmother, a neighborhood where folks spent more on lawn care than I made in a month, McMansions for $800 grand, HOA dues bigger than a car payment, neighbors measuring grass with rulers. My land. It sat at the lowest point in the whole development. Every drop of rain, every overzealous sprinkler, every gutter and storm drain from 347 homes ended up passing through my patch on its way to Willowbrook Resort Lake. That lake, the crown jewel. Instagram backdrops, tech bro weddings, fishing tournaments. It made every McMansion worth triple what they paid. When Sarah died from cancer, I built that chicken coop. Not because I was going full farmhand, but because grief makes you weird, and driving nails was safer than driving myself to the bottle. I handpicked every cedar plank, built it on the spot where my grandma's chickens had lived since '59. The smell of fresh shavings, the sound of Henrietta pecking corn. It kept me together when nothing else would. What I didn't realize was buried under my boots, my grandma's most valuable inheritance, an emergency drainage valve. I'd found a cryptic note in her old files, scrawled in her spidery hand. Annual valve, storm system, wet season only. I thought it was farm talk. Turns out, that valve controlled nearly 3/4 of the water flowing into the neighborhood's precious lake. Enter Delilah Thornfield, HOA board president, Range Rover driver, nails sharp as her tongue, married to Preston, the developer looking to expand the lake and make a killing. She arrived with a violation notice crisp as fresh-pressed hatred. Unauthorized agricultural structure, $500 fine, escalating by $100 a day. I called. Explained about the funeral, the grief, my dad. She said, Mr. Crawford, grief doesn't exempt you from community standards. That line, man, the way it sounded in her voice, like broken glass in velvet. I tried for a variance, denied. Mediation? Not necessary. Extension? Absolutely not. This was a house of cards propped up by property values and HOA threats. That phone call was a line in the sand. My little ranch house, surrounded by mortgage monuments, was a target, and targets get eliminated. I watched Henrietta chase a grasshopper, the morning sun making the lake look like liquid gold. What Delilah didn't know, that rusty valve under my land was the kill switch for their whole suburban paradise. I just had to decide if I had the guts to use it. 3 days later, a legal grenade hit my mailbox. Thornfield and Associates Legal Services. Because of course the HOA president runs a law firm. Notice of legal action, $2,000 in fees, 72-hour deadline. The photos they sent. Shot from my neighbor's yard. Rookie mistake. 20 years of electrical work taught me one thing. Documentation beats intimidation. That weekend, I installed security cameras with night vision. Cost me $800 I didn't have. My granddad used to say, knowledge is expensive, but ignorance costs everything. He was right. Digging through county regs, pages and pages of sleep medicine, I struck gold. Delilah had never filed her precious amendments with the county. Her rules? Legally worthless. But the jackpot was my grandma's original 1959 property survey. My coop sat on the footprint of her original hen house, decades before the HOA even existed. Grandfathered use, legal as apple pie. I filed a counterclaim, citing continuous use since Eisenhower. The satisfaction? Watching HOA bullies choke on their own paperwork. Then my cameras caught Preston, Delilah's developer husband, sneaking around my property at 2:47 a.m. with surveying equipment. Not just harassment, but pre-development reconnaissance, the kind you do before you file for permits. Turns out my worthless 2 acres were exactly where the new lake expansion needed to drain. They couldn't buy me out at fair value, so the plan was to crush me with violations, foreclose, then scoop up the land for pennies. Evil, clever, and about to blow up in their faces. Delilah called, voice all fake sweet and brittle. Your deadline is tomorrow at noon. Contractor standing by. Click. That sound hung in the air like a coffin lid. But what she didn't realize, my land wasn't just the geographic low point. It was the control point for the entire system. And somewhere in my grandma's papers, I'd seen references to manual flood control. That evening, watching the sun set behind the lake, I knew the thing she wanted most was sitting right beneath my feet. Tuesday noon, I sipped sweet tea on my porch while 3 contractors circled my coop, scratching their heads. Grandfathered rights win round 1. But victory just made Delilah desperate. Thursday, emergency HOA meeting. I didn't get an invite, but my neighbor Janet did, texted to see if I was dying of some exotic chicken disease. Delilah's show trial, with slides of my hens. Chickens bring rats. Rats bring disease. Disease tanks property values. Board voted 4:1 to authorize immediate removal. Gave themselves the right to trespass. Mark, Janet's husband, filmed the whole thing. Watching that video, something cold and sharp settled in my chest. 2 could play at this public opinion game. I started a Facebook group, Willowbrook Property Rights, posted historical photos, shared the footage of Preston trespassing, told my story. 87 neighbors joined in a week, sharing their own HOA horror stories. Margaret Chun, fined $3,000 for parking her son's wheelchair van. Bill Rodriguez, violations for a tomato patch. The Hendersons, legal threats for a wheelchair ramp. Delilah targeted anyone who didn't fit her fantasy. But the real move? Heritage Day. Neighborhood potluck, fresh eggs from my plague-ridden hens, kids collecting eggs, laughter mixing with the smell of charcoal. That's when Margaret pulled me aside. She'd done real estate title research. Delilah's been collecting commissions from the resort expansion. She's clearing inventory for a payout. Margaret also found the original 1962 drainage maps. My property was the manual flood control point. That night, I dug in my basement. 2 hours later, I hit metal, a valve wheel, wrapped in oiled canvas. One gentle turn, the pond dropped 2 inches in 20 minutes. My coop sat on top of the entire system. Monday came like a bureaucratic apocalypse. Violation reports for everything. My work truck? Unsightly commercial vehicle. Backup alarm? Noise disturbance. Hospice nurses? Unauthorized frequent visitors. By Friday, 12 violations, fines climbing over $8,000. My favorite? Disturbing community peace through excessive emotional displays. Crying at my father's bedside. If Satan ran an HOA, Delilah would be his star student. But the more they pushed, the more neighbors joined my Facebook group. It became a support group for HOA survivors. Then Rebecca from Channel 7 reached out, smelled a ratings hit. Widower bullied during family tragedy. TV crew rolled in, filmed me next to the coop, interviewed neighbors, ran Preston's trespass footage. The story aired Friday night. Grieving homeowner targeted by HOA. It went viral. Local Reddit exploded. The comment section turned into a digital lynch mob for Delilah. That's when Dr. Sarah Chun, Margaret's sister, environmental scientist, called. She wanted to know about the drainage system. Over coffee, she explained, someone with access to that valve controls water for the whole development. That weekend, I did experiments, filmed everything, watched the pond levels drop and rise. By Monday, the resort was in panic mode, wedding cancellations, bad reviews, management demanding answers. Delilah doubled down, hired a PI, filed new complaints, even tried to frame me as a community risk. But Thursday night, my cameras caught 3 contractor trucks outside my house. My father died Tuesday. Funeral Friday at 10 a.m. Delilah's plan. Destroy the evidence while I was at the cemetery. Friday, 6 a.m., I stood in my bathrobe watching sledgehammers swing. My cameras caught every blow, every trespassing footstep. Rock bottom? It's a solid foundation for revenge. Digging through Grandma's files, I found the nuclear option. 1962 county correspondence granting perpetual easement for manual flood control. Legal rights that trumped all HOA covenants. County engineer Rosa Martinez confirmed, "You control the water. HOA has no authority here." One turn of the valve, and the lake would drop 8 to 12 feet in a week. Delilah had declared war on the wrong guy. Saturday, my kitchen turned into a war room. Marcus Webb, retired environmental lawyer, Rosa, Tank the contractor, his own grudge with the HOA, and Eleanor, a retired clerk who'd been collecting HOA dirt for years. Their findings: the board was riddled with conflicts of interest and kickbacks. Our plan: confront the board, flex my easement rights, show them what real leverage looks like, and, if needed, take it to the press, the county, and the courts. Monday morning, Delilah escalated. Anonymous flyers calling me a danger to the community, fake reviews tanking my business, calls to clients. Wednesday's HOA meeting. Photos of my property labeled public safety concern. She was painting me as the villain, isolating me, destroying my support. But Thursday night, Tank's surveillance team got the real bombshell. Delilah was filing for a restraining order, claiming I was a threat, inventing witnesses, aiming to get me barred from meetings and community spaces. Eleanor's research uncovered the real motive. Preston's Phase 2 expansion hinged on my land. If they didn't get it by December 31st, they lost $500,000. Delilah was desperate, out of time, and out of luck. Friday morning, I stood over my valve. 48 hours to decide. Fight fire with fire? I turned the valve one full rotation counterclockwise. The lake began to drop. By Saturday morning, it was down 4 feet. Instagram beaches turned to mudflats, docks stranded in the muck, weddings canceled. Delilah's morning jog ended in a meltdown, captured by my security cameras. That scream, part rage, part terror, music to my ears. Noon, emergency board meeting. Delilah's plan? Blame me for environmental terrorism, call the sheriff, call the news, seize my property. What she didn't know? We were ready. Marcus with legal briefs, Rosa with engineering docs, Tank with 50 supporters, Eleanor with boxes of evidence. As the meeting began, Delilah tried to paint me as a saboteur. I stood, produced my grandmother's 1962 papers, handed them to Deputy Williams. He confirmed, no laws have been broken. Rosa live-streamed herself opening the valve, water flowing back into the lake, restoration visible in real time. The crowd gasped. Board members called for Delilah's resignation. Janet, the secretary, quit on the spot. The room erupted, demands, accusations, applause as Delilah stormed out, trailed by the sound of her own defeat. 6 months later, I was reading about Delilah's sentencing. 18 months for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. Preston's company? Gone. The new HOA board? Paid my legal fees, reimbursed double for my coup, issued a public apology. My property? Now the Willowbrook Heritage Garden, an environmental education site with school tours, kids collecting eggs, laughter mixing with the morning dew. Our HOA nightmare became the spark for a fund that's helped dozens fight back against bullying boards. Every sunrise, coffee in hand, I watch new generations of chickens pecking at the same spot Grandma's hens lived 60 years ago. Property values didn't just recover, they soared. The best part? Now every HOA board in the county thinks twice before threatening the guy with the chickens. Because sometimes, the quietest man controls the water. Share your own HOA battle in the comments. Maybe you'll be next on our show. If seeing karma served made your day, smash that like, drop your thoughts below, and make sure you're subscribed. Because out here, justice always finds a way.